When you ask a second grader, why did you do it? Many times she or he will say, he did it first. That's how many of us operate. And sometimes even our politicians operate the same way. It's how we humans have been raised to react to someone slapping us on the cheek. Eye for eye, tooth for tooth. It's even in the Bible. So the second graders and their parents and their grandparents do the same. If you hit me, I hit you. If you betray me, I betray you. We play this tit for tat all our lives, don't we? We play and we live as this eye for eye and tooth for tooth was the most important Christian commandment there is. But it isn't. Of course, our politicians are not the only ones who play this game. As you know, I was in Jerusalem last year, and when I heard the second reading from the book of Revelation about the new Jerusalem that is about to come, I thought to myself, about time. Trust me, our politicians compared to theirs are innocent. It's always who did it first. Was it Israeli soldiers or the Palestinian children attacking the Israelis? There is a constant, never-ending tit for tat going in the Middle East, especially in Israel and Palestine. Who did it first? And when should I hit him back? This cycle of violence apparently cannot be stopped. We all operate based on this tooth for tooth or eye for eye rule. And we all live as if this new commandment has never been given to us. Forget Jesus. Focus on this eye for eye, tooth for tooth rule. Today's readings speak of two apostles that I would like you to think about for a moment. Paul in the first reading, and then Apostle Judas Iscariot in the Gospel passage that was mentioned only for half a second. Now, both Paul and Judas Iscariot had blood on their hands. Actually, before Paul became Paul, he was Saul. And compared to Judas, or compared to Paul, Judas was an innocent person. Judas only had the blood of one person on his hands. His friend, his rabbi, Jesus. Saul was guilty of death of many Christians. He was in charge of persecuting those who were converting from Judaism to Christianity. He was hunting them down. He was finding them in their hiding place, dragging them out, and executing them. This was his job. Saul was great executioner. Saul took pride in his job of ridding the earth of the followers of Christ. And yet, Saul turns out in the end in a very different way from Judas. Even though Saul had many more reasons to be guilty, to feel guilty and depressed than Judas, Saul turns out to be one of the greatest apostles, and Judas, as you all know, commits suicide. How come, even though they both had blood on their hands, how come they ended up in such drastically different ways? Judas was never accepted back by the disciples of Jesus. Judas was never forgiven. Judas was never welcomed back. The disciples never had time to love Judas despite his betrayal. Saul eventually went back to the apostles and asked them for forgiveness. And forgiveness was given him. They were incredulous, they were suspicious, but after a while, they did forgive him. After a while, they remembered what Jesus said in the Last Supper, "A new commandment I give you. Love one another as I have loved you." And because Saul experienced this new commandment, because Saul was forgiven and embraced, he turned out to be a different man. Judas was never given this occasion. Judas never had a chance to be forgiven, to know what it means to be loved despite your betrayal. Judas never experienced what it means to be loved. It turns out that we have the power to turn people into Paul or into Judas. This awesome power rests in your hands. You can make the people who betrayed you turned out like Judas or like Paul. This lays in your hands. What do you do with those who did it first to you? What did you do with those who stabbed you in the back? What do you do with those who betrayed your trust? Makes incredible difference in their lives. If you play eye for eye, tooth for tooth, we will have many more Judases in our lives. But if you are like the apostles who eventually forgave Saul, who embraced him and gave him another chance, you have a chance to turn this Judas into future Paul. Because only this new commandment, love one another, has the power to change our lives. Nothing will ever change as long as we go by this old rule, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. Things will be as they have been for thousands and thousands of years. If you want a drastic change, do what the apostles did with Saul. Kill them with kindness. Kill them with love. Forgive them and show them what it means to be a follower of Christ. Show them that even though it hurts, even though you are wounded because of their betrayal, even though your heart may be never healed, it is up to you to turn Judas into Paul. Amen.